is by Dar Arafa Architecture, and I call on stage the architect Waleed Arafa, hoping that my pronunciation is right.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation and for allowing me to be here amongst all of these great projects. The project that I'm presenting is a mosque in Upper Egypt, which is the southern part of Egypt. My practice is in Cairo, is based in Cairo. And just to give you an idea of what this project is, this is a little town, actually a little village in Upper Egypt in the south, 500 kilometers to the south of Cairo. And in the spot where you see this building, there was a mosque 300 years ago, but it had collapsed before I had taken over the project. The building is, we are looking at the southeast. This is the southeastern facade. And so to our east, there's the graveyard of the village, and to the left, the residential plots. The main street is on the front here, is where we see, and then in the behind there's a small cul-de-sac that is not accessible to everyone. It's only accessible to the people who have from one family who have the houses around it. And so when the old building collapsed, the people from the village came to one influential person who was originally from the village and who's a friend of mine, and he's a scholar, and he asked me to come and see what could be done. And so we have, when we talk about the client in this project, we're talking about stakeholders, we're talking about the villagers, but we're talking about this person who raised most of the funds, and the rest of the funds were raised by my family and friends who supported the cause. So approaching the design problem, if we look at the street outside here, the street is very narrow, so the traffic is so high, and there's a lot of cattle that passes, so there's noise, there's dust, there's pollution, there's bad odor, and of course it's a very hot and arid place. So my biggest problem was to allow ventilation, natural ventilation and light, which is usually done through windows and all of that, but then this would allow also dust and noise and pollution and bad smells, and this is a place for worship which needs calm. So the solution, combined with also a symbolic aspiration, which is, you know, the connection between worship and the vertical axes in architecture, is that everything was, the opening, the ventilation and the natural light was done from upwards, and very little openings, just the entrances, this one from here, an entrance from the back, are almost the only openings, the horizontal openings. So we'll take, I will show that through the slides, but I'll take you, and then the services for the mosque where people perform ablution is done on 2 levels. If somebody wants to do ablution just speedily before they go into the mosque, they do it in this area. And if they want more than that, if they want toilets or more than that, even to take a shower, they can go downstairs before they come. This is the shoe rack on the left before they enter. This is what you see when you enter. The building system of the mosque is mixed, so there are skeletal concrete elements, but most of the covering is done in arches, domes, and pendentives. And I used the pendentives here not only to transform from the square plan to the circular plan for the dome, but I also used them. If you look at these small squares, there are 108 of them in the main hall, which you can see here. So each square was divided into 2 triangles. One of them, which follows the solar path, is a pendentive, so it's like a triangle drawn on a sphere, and it covers the opening, it covers the other triangle from direct sunlight, but allows more merciful light to enter. Because the highest sun in the year in a place like this can go to, the azimuth can go to 84, 85. So this is the main hall. And I was also hoping to solve other problems, because there's not a single mosque in the whole village that is made to welcome women, just because. But when we designed this, I made it a mission to allow women in all 3 levels. We have a lower ground floor. This is the ground floor, and then we have a mezzanine as well. And we have, it's not only a place for worship, but also there are other programmatic elements like the space underneath the lower ground floor can receive medical caravans, because this is a very underserviced area. It can also be divided into classrooms and so on and so forth. So this is the ceiling. This dome was built with lime and sand blocks, and I made a cutting list to achieve this precession or growth. Stone features in 4 places. So we have the double black in the mihrab, which indicates the direction of prayer, the direction of Mecca. And then there's the Egyptian alabaster, where 100 cubes are formed to represent the divine attributes as understood in Islam. And then we have this Egyptian stone, which is called galala. And then, of course, the exterior is done in hashma stone, which is a sandstone. So now this is the northwestern facade. This is the facade that is seen from what is a small semi-private piazza, which we are also trying to develop now, add a bit of a landscape element, because this is where this big family, whose houses are around this space, used for celebrations and even for funerals. So it's an outdoors extension of the functions of the mosque. And then this section here is exclusively for the entrance of women. Women can enter from this entrance as well, but this is fully exclusive for them, because there are certain traditions where actually the women themselves wouldn't want to mix with men. It's a generational thing as well, so the women who don't feel comfortable mixing can go on from this entrance. So here you get a glimpse of the pendant of domes in action. And you see the light and shadow, how they protect the opening. This wall is what protects the staircase leading downwards and upwards to the women's mezzanine. So I also tried to do these indirect openings to allow them, which they are very close to it when they're standing on the stairs. So they can see the outer world, but the outer world can't see them. This is the mezzanine. The staircase leading down to the multifunctional hall down there. So it can, this place, at certain seasons, there's an excess in the number of worshippers, but that's maybe just a month in the year and once a week in Friday prayers. But during the rest of the of the year, that space could be used for other things that also adds an all-inclusive element to the project. So not only Muslims are welcome in there, but anybody who wants medical service or extra tuition, education, all of that. That is the Egyptian sandstone called Hashma. This is the mosque during Friday sermon. And this is on the highest day of the year. So this is about 12 or 12:30 p.m. On the 21st of June. These openings above the mihrab allow the hot air to escape. Of course, in addition also to the opening in the oculus and the dome. The alabaster. I was happy to install these personally, because we're a design and build practice, and I'd like to always participate and learn in each project. At night. So the whole proportional system and ideation comes from something called the proportion script, which is a penmanship system in Arabic, which was developed specifically to express the Holy Quran, which is based fully, the proportion system represents the 28 letters or letter shapes of Arabic based on the golden section, developed in the Abbasid period by a vizier called Ibn Muqla. And all 28 letters go back to something that he calls the dot, which is what in 3D is my interpretation, this mihrab, which is called the cube of cubes. This one here. That's it. Thank you very much.
What about the old mosque? Because we haven't seen any picture. It was a reference for you, or was just a small mosque?
No, it wasn't. I regret not putting it because I thought of the limited, like when I do actual presentations, I go from I show the old, because I studied conservation as well.
Yeah.
And when I was called for help, I wasn't called to design. It was already in a terrible state, but I was asked to see if there was any significance or value. And when I scanned the village, I saw that what we have is things that were built in the last 100 years, and then things that are older. And when you look at it, it's actually a decline because it's terrible concrete. It's not that concrete in itself is terrible, but it's terrible concrete that has no scale, that has no relationship to what was before it. And I've documented that, of course, everything.
So it was not.
I've written a conservation statement first.
No, because I was confused. It was the old one, or so it was a reference for you, was just an existing building?
I used references from other buildings.
No, that's clear. That's
yes.
And my second question...
In the village, but not in the mosque.
And my second question is, why twisting column?
The twisting
That was
column.
my first question.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I mean, everything to me, I'm quite familiar to Abbasid and Seleucid architecture. Cairo has an amazing set of incredible monuments. So the references are quite clear to me. The only reference, which is not a reference for me, which is not clear, is the twist.
Exactly.
The twisting column and the twisting tower.
Yes, I love the question because it sheds more light on what I'm trying, my question in architecture, which is, I feel that the architecture in Egypt has been discontinued. Like, we haven't really asked hard questions maybe in the past 150 years or so, with a few exceptions, of course. So there are people who approach this in a historicist manner, so they do style, and I don't believe that this is the answer. I believe, again, in finding out what is the immutable essence in what we might call Egyptian architecture, Islamic architecture, all of these problematic, of course, definitions. But then again, reaching to that bedrock and then coming out with new forms. This is not 100% new form, the minaret and the four columns inside. It's maybe not used in Islamic architecture, but this is the alif. This is, when I refer to the Ibn Muqla proportion script, he bases everything from a single dot, and then that dot, 7 of them make the alif, and they make them in a certain, and again I regret because it's 10 minutes, I could have shown an animation which shows you how it grows. So this is actually an alif, and Ibn Arabi, who's from Murcia, Spain for instance, says the alif is the Adam of the letters, i.e. is the everything tries to emulate, so like the second letter, the ba, is an alif, but it's twisted in a certain way to give you another meaning and another function. The gim is another letter shape and so on. So but this is a very clear alif. So that's the reference. And also another reason is that I imagine the prayer in Islam has a relationship to pilgrimage. In pilgrimage, we circumambulate around the Kaaba. So that's so I imagine the force doing that inside as well, which then culminates in the dome up there.
Did you contemplate this kind of this figuration, this twist, integrating more with other elements in the project, or was it very important that these were distinct and separate? Because you have a very strong series of elements and moves that are either repetitive or interlocking, especially in this view that we see here. And then you have this tower, the minaret, that especially in this view, it's hard to see its relationship or understand its relationship. We see when you showed the view from above, the composition, which is more convincing. But also the columns, the way they twist up, they interlock with this very formal geometry, and then they come down, landing. The relationships of these twisting elements, what considerations were made with echoing them in other portions or not?
Well, it's all a negotiation between two things, symbolically speaking or conceptually speaking, which is in Islam the changeable and the immutable. So you have things that are moving, like for instance the form of the mosque can change. You may not even do a minaret or do a minaret. There's nothing that is essential for the act of worship or the act of prayer, but direction, for instance, with the Qibla, is something that is essential. So all through the thought process of designing a mosque or thinking of anything that is based on Islamic thought, you have to differentiate between moving things and things that are fixed, that are axial, that don't move. So what I was trying to do here is a negotiation between two. So you have elements, yes, that are very steady and standing there, and then you have things that indicate motion, which is intentionally done in a certain direction. So it points vertically, but it's going counterclockwise, which is the same direction as the circumambulation around the Kaaba, because this is what we face when we pray. So this is what I was hoping to achieve.
Thank you.
I'm sorry about my ignorance on Islamic architecture. However, in the few mosques I've been, the atmosphere is very different from the atmosphere I've seen in these photographs. I can only assume that is intention. That you want to make a new path for Islamic religious architecture. That's the impression you are trying to push it and change. That's the impression I got, because it's as I said, I mean, for instance, one of my favorite buildings in the world is Cordoba Cathedral, And when I go to Spain, I always go to Cordoba, and I stay on my own for a long time, and I feel like floating. And when looking at the interior, which of your space, which is very different from the exterior, obviously probably intentional, I feel that your change is, I wonder, is intentional. You're moving away from that ancient spiritual feeling of the traditional mosque. I guess is conscious. You try to move forward in much more modern way, and I was wondering what's, how strong you feel that is your direction as an architect.
Well, your feeling is right, but I wouldn't call it a modern way, because modern has the word has obviously its baggage, but I would say I try to be aware of, again, what is immutable. Certain things will never change in a mosque, whether they're in the 21st century or the first, or like the 7th century, 8th century, and whether they're in Morocco or in Indonesia or Britain for that matter. I wrote my thesis about mosques in Britain. And yes, so I'm trying to say that there are certain things that must change, because if you don't change them, then they become stagnant and they become irrelevant to their place and time and all of their circumstances. And there are things, of course, that you should never change, otherwise it doesn't become a mosque anymore. So I'm trying to look at the fresh potentials in a mosque, because the last great mosque that at least not everybody agrees about my opinion, but in Egypt at least, is maybe 150 years ago, which is the Rifa'i mosque just across from Sultan Hassan, which also it used all the old elements, but it was at least contextually very sensible, and the workmanship was great. But then we are 150 years later, what do we have to say today? So yes, I was trying to do that, but I wouldn't say I'm breaking away from tradition. I'm extending tradition in a new sense. That's what I'm trying to achieve in my architecture generally. Thank you very much.
So the next project is